AI are trying to mimic humans. If you don't have humans to start from, where do you start?
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the podcast. I'm your host, Bobby Brill, and today we're going to flip the script a little bit and talk about the humanities and liberal arts and philosophy and creativity and art and how that applies to technology and why it applies in this case to the creation of good and better AI, which of course is what we're always here to do. Joining us today are three members from ServiceNow's linguistics team, and they're going to explain just that, the humanities, liberal arts, and also talk about how people with humanities and liberal arts backgrounds can succeed in the world of technology. So kind of a double dipping episode, if you will. First off, Roberto, please take a second and introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. My name is Roberto Bacci. I am manager of content development at ServiceNow. I'm originally from Italy. My background is in Scandinavian studies and Italian studies and linguistics, but I've been working in tech for the past 8 years or so. Before, I was teaching mainly Italian studies in 4 different American universities for about 11 years.
Scandinavian and Italian. I don't think that could be farther apart in the world of emotion and feelings.
Maybe, yeah.
Wow. Midam, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Midam Kim. I'm a senior linguist in ServiceNow. And before doing this, I was a cognitive scientist and linguist. So I was in academia for a long time. I got a linguistics PhD, and also I worked in the business school as a researcher and also professor. And then I joined the ServiceNow last September. So my 1-year anniversary is coming very close.
Last but not least, Ryan. How'd you come about to ServiceNow?
My name's Ryan Dukes, senior linguist, working mainly on the Q&A question answering team within the search. So we try to make sure answers to questions are correct. So,
and that's something that it's you summed that up right perfectly there. You know, the three of you have this academic, instructor, professorship, scholarly just vibe that you're helping the answers be correct, which is really key to all of this AI creation that we're doing. So it's going to be an exciting conversation because we're not going to talk about tech, which is great for me. And I think for a lot of people too, we're not going to get into the wires and the ones and zeros. But this concept that Roberto, you really brought to the surface when we talked last was humanities. And I actually had to look it up, and I'm embarrassed I didn't know what these were. But the humanities are the natural sciences, the social sciences, things like philosophy, history, art history, performance, and creative backgrounds that oftentimes get overshadowed in the big tech world because we're working with engineers and mathematicians. And that really is the key to making this successful, is that we need more humanities in tech. Is that correct, Roberto?
It's our idea of technology, which is a little bit strange and relatively new. So if the humanities deal with humans, what do technology deal with? Things or machines. But if you think of the word itself, technology, techne in Greek means craft, skill, and logos means word. So it's there's been a ramification. There used to be one thing, technology and the arts, and then with time they diverged. I'm simplifying a lot here. But think, for example, of the artisan, a person who, 300 years ago, used to make beautiful chairs, decorated. And so an artisan is a skilled craftsman, but is also an artist. And it combines the two things. In tech specifically, there is also this idea of the two things are not too separate from each other, but also innovation, new things very often come from the crossroads, an intersection of disciplines. what is known as the Medici effect from the book by the Swedish-American entrepreneur Frans Johansson. So being an expert just in one discipline does not bring you forward a lot, incrementally. While you combine different disciplines, very often something new and interesting comes up. Think of biomedical engineering, for example. So the Medici effect, which is a new word, relatively new word. The book is from 2004, I think, but the idea has been around for forever. The Medici were a family from Florence in Italy, and they were bankers, and they were, they had a big wealth, and that they used to patron artists, philosophers, scientists.
That's kind of what we're trying to do, is we're trying to bring back this idea of this is art and craft and this is technology, and they are supposed to be hand in hand, and it's not supposed to be separated. Let me ask you deeper, just when it comes to AI, why are the humanities so important specifically to AI?
Well, AI are trying to mimic humans, right? So if you don't have humans to start from, where do you start? So this is one reason, everything starts from human, also in AI. But also people with a background in liberal arts, they have many transferable skills. Especially, I would say, if they come from, if they have some experience teaching, it's very helpful to manage teams, for example. It's very helpful for communication. Communication is a little bit of a problem in tech companies for various reasons that would take like an episode to explain, but communication can be helped by people with a liberal arts background. There are already many figures of, liberal art people in tech companies. Designers very often have an art background, for example. Linguists, language is obviously very important for large language models. Recently, with prompt engineering, language and ability to write creatively, but also logically, has become very, very important with generative AI.
And Midam, I want to ask you this. How do we work with engineers if we're not engineers? What are some things that we should be thinking about and trying to solve?
So first of all, it's not just about people versus people. So we're all people and we're all doing the same thing. So we have collective goals that we have to achieve together. So it's not about engineers and the rest of us. It's more about the fields and the thinking that we're doing all of these together. So engineering is inherently about product development and developing the skills and techniques. But when we are doing all of these in these industry environment, what we have to do is to really work on user satisfaction. So it is not just to develop this technology to the best version of it. It is to inherently and ultimately for customer satisfaction. So because we're in this business environment, this is where humanities people, and also not just about from the humanities people, but also from the engineers people, that we really have to focus on how we can combine knowledge and expertise of humanities into what we're doing here. So that's the commonalities that we all have to find out and focus on. And I think that's one way we can work better with engineers as a humanities background people.
Okay, that makes sense. There is that human aspect that's kind of in the word there. If we're going to get more into language and stuff, humanities, humans, and things like that. Ryan, I want to ask you: is the main contribution to developing AI is it to make it more human or human friendly? How does that work?
One thing that defines humans is that they always say like to err is human, uh, and that's something that we really cannot allow our the large language models to be human like in that regard. Um, so it's because these things that we're building are going to be very capable, very powerful, and be able to generate content that people if it's ServiceNow, we hope that they're going to be using it and relying on it and trusting it and sharing it and believing it. And it's for that reason that we need our AI models to not only be human, but to be even more like honest and truthful than humans. So,
Almost the opposite of humans. They're right all the time.
exactly. Yes. Models can be human, but cannot err. So
That public opinion of humanities, you think somebody is open-minded. How does that play into this world of AI and what needs to be developed?
typically if you, say, oh, I went to college and I studied humanities, then the general concept nowadays is like, oh, they're very open-minded. They did the liberal arts. So, they're going to always try to be very appreciative and understanding of everybody's thoughts and opinions. And I think in a humanities education, that is one of the emphases. They have to be open-minded to appreciate different viewpoints, different opinions, different backgrounds. But another crucial aspect of liberal arts education is the development of really critical thinking skills, critical analysis skills. So being able to read, doing a close reading of things, being able to understand how communication can be used in negative ways, for instance, and being able to the importance of kind of verifying where information is coming from. And of course, in any research, any academics, you have to do your citation, your attribution, saying where you got the information from, making sure it's all correct. And so this is another an important thing with these powerful tools that we need to apply our humanities backgrounds to.
Roberto, can you walk us through briefly or the humanities areas of study that you think are important to this process?
Yeah, the humanities are made of many different fields. I would say each of them can bring something to tech. Like to start, we can start, for example, with philosophy. So what does philosophy bring to tech? Philosophy itself has many subfields or many branches. For example, the most obvious for tech is logic. Without logic, how can you properly reason? So how is helpful in reasoning and decision making? You mentioned trust. Another branch of philosophy is ethics. So it helps us understand the moral implications of AI, and it can guide us in the responsible development of AI. Another category that people very often don't think about is epistemology. So the study or theory of knowledge. What is the validity of knowledge? What is the scope of knowledge? And it helps us understand the nature of knowledge in AI system. Another branch that people may not think about immediately is hermeneutics. It's very difficult for a non-English speaker to pronounce this in English. Hermeneutics is the study of interpretation or the conditions of understanding.
The answer to that age-old question when so many people go to college and go, what are you going to study? Well, I'm going to be a philosophy major. Like, what on earth are you going to do with and I have a fine art degree. So what are you going to do with a philosophy major? You can teach philosophy. But now you've just explained, and it really keys on what Ryan, you just said, that where knowledge comes from and verifying knowledge is correct and how this knowledge works is paramount to artificial intelligence.
Sorry.
So all of us who are super smart and are going to be smart or want to study how to be smart is quite literally what we need today.
Yes, and hermeneutics helps us with understanding better interpretation. I cannot describe you how many times in our day we are sitting in front of a text and trying to interpret it. It happens all the time, especially at ServiceNow, where most of the texts are like tickets. But yeah, so that plays a big part, and also how interpretation and how the understanding of a text happens in context, which is also related to linguistics, to pragmatics specifically. And and also it has to do with meaning making. A lot of the texts that we read during the day are very, very ambiguous. When you're trying to understand what a user has a problem with, and for example, they may describe a tool you never heard of, and every day we are reading text and interpreting them. They are not medieval books, but they're pretty challenging anyway.
That's that left brain, right brain thing that last time we spoke, Ryan, you mentioned that quite a bit. Was it's two sides of the whole that have to be engaged, and Roberto, that that's the best segue I think I'm ever going to come up with. This is a lot of psychology. This is a lot of Freudian, Jungian, and I'm sure I'm missing more better than the two obvious ones. But how does that play into AI and creating for technology?
Yeah, it plays in many ways. One way, the first one that comes into mind is like having a better understanding of bias. So that you are, whatever you communicate, you are biased, and understanding also how the models you build can be biased. So that's one way that psychology can come into the picture. Others I have can be related to, again, decision making is also part of psychology. The patterns in which we think, with which we think, are parts of psychology. And also another aspect, if you want a very sophisticated model, it needs to be able to respond to human emotions. So that also, if you have a psychology background, it helps. Bias, I mentioned before, bias, especially unconscious bias. So already the word unconscious brings that psychoanalytic as a psychoanalytic flavor in itself.
Yeah, that's not something I think most of us think about when it comes to tech, even though with usability and UI and UX, that whole other world that's been growing immensely, which, Midam, I want to ask you about this. This is where we're getting into that world of empathy. Can you talk a little bit about how that plays into this whole process?
So it is to make products for users, and to do it well, we really need to be able to put ourselves into other people's, our users' shoes. And that is a definition of empathy. So we need to be able to think in terms of our users and what their pain points are and what their processes will be when they're using our products. And that is where empathy becomes really important in general business processes and also this technology development. And even more important for AI development, because it is very powerful. So it can do things that were not possible before without too much of controlling from the business part. So we really need to have empathy towards our customers when we're at this really early stage of AI development.
For the people in the humanities, how do they make that transition, which from this conversation seems completely feasible and necessary? How do you make that transition from humanities to technology?
I think one of the hardest parts, especially if you have a career in the humanities, for example, in academia, is like make a change in yourself. Like decide you're tired of a certain work and you want to do something new. It may seem simple to explain, but it's actually a very hard mental process, and it can take years. Second thing, you have built a career until that point that brought you maybe to a high position, and you want to transition to tech. Be ready to go down in career. Like you may start with a fairly humble job as a contractor, maybe doing translations, maybe prompt engineering, whatever. Starts with small roles, small step. Every job will give you something. You will learn something there. About the actual skills that are needed, I suggest learning some Python code. It's true that a large language model can code for you up to a certain point, but knowing how it functions, knowing the concepts, and being able to do like simple programs, it is kind of important. Something I also studied in the beginning was SQL or SQL. So knowing something about how to query databases. Actually, I never used SQL in any of my career, but for some reason they ask it in the job interviews. So it's
we all know those tech interviews are a world unto their own.
And then something very obvious and simple is like Excel spreadsheets. We don't use them in the humanities almost ever, except maybe in the end of the semester when we are calculating the grades of the students, things like that. But it's everyday bread in tech companies. Is still one of the most powerful tools, and it is used very frequently when there are not problems of privacy in the data. Excel is what everybody most usually use. And then, of course, especially if you come from linguistics, deepen your knowledge in NLP, natural language processing, NLU, natural language understanding, and have some fundamental concepts about computer science. What is a GPU? There is a lot of talks about GPUs in generative AI tech companies, for example. Those are the basics, and be ready not to be too much a perfectionist. It's good to have quality, but if you are too much a perfectionist, remember you always have deadlines, and there is a product that needs to be ready by a certain date. So you need. I tend to be a perfectionist, so I have to control myself quite a lot when I. And the
well, that's that craftsmanship and that artisan. That, I'm not releasing it. I'm not pulling the cover off of it until it is perfected. And I think when you're making things in technology, it's like, hey, it worked.
Yeah.
All right. I guess we'll keep going.
Exactly.
I want to ask, Midam and Ryan both as we're going. Midam, was there any skills that you had to develop that were kind of a surprise to you? Something that like, I didn't think that was going to be, I would be doing this all the time.
So first of all, like Roberto said, changing myself so that I can be always thinking about what the final outcome has to be. The final outcome has to be that we're going to be done by the deadline, doing something, rather than perfecting it. And also it has to be about user satisfaction. So in academia, especially in humanities, what we're thinking about is humanities. So in linguistics, what we're thinking about is a language, how we learn languages, how we process languages, and what's the difference between this word and that word. That is not the dependent measure here. The dependent measure is that, of course, ultimately in the business world, it's money, but before then, it's user satisfaction. So that is a fundamental change that I had to make for myself, especially when I was teaching and doing research in the business school first. And that transition was really helpful when I work in industry. So that was this thing that was a most fundamental change that I had to make more for myself. And other than that, of course, basic coding skills and LM knowledge and logical thinking. Those are basic.
So the theory of academia that we spend so much time in academia is not quite as important as I need to hold it and touch it and sell it.
Yeah, it's just changing. It's just so we you can keep all your theories, you can keep all your knowledge, but then now it's just the outcome has to be user satisfaction. You can use all of it, you can keep and your expertise can be really helpful actually. So I don't think we people have to just abandon what they did in the academia. They just have to use it, and then they just have to the outcome of what you know has to be user satisfaction.
Got it. Okay. Okay. Ryan, for you, was there anything that surprised you as you went from academia into technology? Were there any tools that you started using that you had not anticipated, or a different shift in thinking?
I'm still learning those tools that I thought that I would have to learn in order to be working in the tech industry. Actually, yeah, with I as Roberto said, like Excel, it's something I used it while doing my dissertation research and just to track some stuff, and I realized that I had no idea what I was doing. And just taking a little bit of for my first month or so, just practicing. We had to do stuff with Excel, and here I think it's one of the advantages of trying to improve things, trying to make things better, that helps you to one of those skills that you develop in academia that really helps here is just saying, oh, I need to figure out how to do this. The ability to learn something new, the ability to all of a sudden I was using Excel to track numbers, and I still don't have the ability to code anything in particular, but I'm able to set up some projects, labeling projects, by editing code that is already there, just trying to interpret what's available. I think for the bigger differences, especially if you're in the more higher levels of academia, if you want to get your PhD, or if you work as a professor, is that your academics at that level, their research really defines who they are as a person. You're defined by whatever book you wrote, whatever project you're working on, and shifting to industry. That's a hard thing. Most established professors probably would not not do that, but shifting to industry, you have to be a little bit more flexible, having flexibility, having, like, I don't know if they call it an agile mindset, where pivoting is a big word too. Like, you start working on a project, you develop these guidelines, and start working on the data. You're like, okay, good, this is great, and then all of a sudden you find out that, oh wait, no, we're taking a different path. We don't have to do this project anymore. We're going to do something completely different. And I know that can be very like, no, we were supposed to do this, and now we have to change and redo everything. And that's one of the frustrating things if you come from academia, but it's also a really exciting thing, because you have to shift gears a lot. You have to be able to let things go. And also the what I've really enjoyed is the amount of, like, teamwork that's involved in working in industry. When you're in school, then you have your class of friends, your class that you go with, but it's really just on you to do all the work. When you're researching, you write your dissertation by yourself, and it's all on you, and it's your product that you put together. But like you just said, it's here we have to work collaboratively. Really, we're one part of the puzzle, and we need to make sure our part is good. So maybe we don't get our name stamped on now Assist's newest feature, but we get to work together with lots of different people.
Right, you're not looking to be in citations and listed on the top of theses as they're being
Yeah.
published. It's no, I worked on Now Assist. I really did. It's there. That is a different shift when it comes to credits and things like that. I want to ask you each to kind of wrap it up and to put your professorial caps on, because everything you've said has been really, really insightful and a lot of food for thought, I think, for everybody. But I want you to leave us all with a little bit of homework. And what would be a book that we should all run out and get to help us really, think about it. Maybe it's a book on a specific subject or something that you realize, wait a second, this is something that's going to help you through it. And Roberto, I'm going to put you on the spot first to do that.
I would say two books are relevant to the conversation we are having. One is called The Fuzzy and the Techie, Why the Liberal Arts Will Rule the Digital World by Scott Hartley. And the other one is The Medici Effect by Franz Johansson. The Medici Effect is about how innovation happens in the crossroad of disciplines, but this topic is also in Scott Hartley book, which is the title says it all. Why the liberal arts will rule the digital world. So I don't think I need to explain more, but they are interesting for this topic.
Yeah, definitely. Midam, what's a good book?
No, I don't want to talk about books, but I want you to.
Fine, okay.
I'm sorry, but because the answer, the most important question, is in you. So I want everyone to be thinking about the biggest problems of your life and how you can solve those problems with AI or technology, because it can be possible. So, for example, we all know that current accessibility features are sometimes working and sometimes not working. And it takes a lot of effort to make our websites to be accessible to everyone. And that everlasting problem can be easily solved, maybe, with better technology. So think about that. And then you can be, as a humanities background, you can be one of the most important people in the next technology development because you have brought that problem to the new field. So I think, everyone can do that. And that is one of the best lessons we can think about. That's what I'm thinking about every day.
I had to find a book. Books. Here you go. The original folk and fairy tales of the Brothers Grimm. They were worried about wolves, and now we're worried about robots. And
so there you have it. A good primer, a good explanation, a good philosophical view of the humanities and technology. And if you're interested in learning more, please hit subscribe on whatever device you're listening to so you never miss an episode. And if you're interested in learning more about the ServiceNow platform, please go to www.servicenow.com/docs for more information. I'm your host, Bobby Brill. Thanks for listening.